Hello everyone, welcome back to Lucky Crit. Recently, we received 3 videos showcasing the playable students of each house and their new Fire Emblem Three Hopes redesigns. However, since we spent so much time ogling the characters, there are a few details here and there that I neglected to mention, and also other tidbits of information that have also since surfaced, so let's discuss them now. In a lot of these various scenes, we can see different colored pots featured in the backgrounds behind the characters. While they may seem at first like they're just environmental decorations, we know based upon previous Warriors games that they will very likely be smashable by the player and provide some type of item drop or effect. They were also present in the first Fire Emblem Warriors crossover game. In the original Fire Emblem Warriors, you had both a Warrior gauge and an Awakening gauge. The Warrior gauge would fill up as you defeated enemies or collected yellow recovery items called Warrior Tonics, which you could sometimes get from the pots. The Warrior gauge was represented by a yellow bar in the top left corner of the screen. Once full, it allowed you to do a unique Warrior special, or Muso attack, dealing a lot of damage in a flashy manner. In a similar fashion, there was also the Awakening gauge, which could of course also be filled similarly with blue pots or items. Going into the Awakening mode gave the player character advantage against all weapon types, increased critical hit chance, and also multiplier bonuses for large KO counts. We aren't certain yet if the Awakening gauge will be making a return appearance in Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, however we have already seen evidence of a potential new mechanic that could instead take its place. We can now see a second yellow bar visible beneath the Warrior gauge, and it's sometimes accompanied by icons of various weapon types. The gauge is also shown to be orange colored in some of the footage. Could this simply be the implementation of Fire Emblem Three House's combat arts in Fire Emblem Warriors? We do know that combat arts will be present in this game, as we've seen them when we were shown images of the convoy, so this could indeed be the case. Perhaps they've opted for combat arts or another yet unknown mechanic to replace the Awakening gauge this time around. Getting back to Three Hopes' pots though, you'll notice that across these various scenes in the footage, pots are now a variety of different colors, instead of having a standard coloration like in the original Fire Emblem Warriors game. While I initially felt that these new pot colors seemed to align with the current player character's element, for example the pot behind Hubert being purple, drawing a connection to his dark magic typing, when continuing to observe other footage though, it's very apparent that other different colors can be near the player characters too. In Caspar's footage, we can see a blue pot in the background, and then what may be a brown or orange pot. The one behind Petra is green, which may match some of her wind-based attacks. However, there's also a brown or orange one nearby too. And the one near Bernadetta is likely to be red, which may indicate a fire elemental pot. Or perhaps these colors could also be associated to weapon types, with red being for swords, blue being for lances, and green being for axes, very much akin to how it works in Fire Emblem Heroes. Pots like the brown ones could be for bow users. We can also see purple and green ones near Linhardt, and so on and so forth. When taking a closer look at the second trailer footage, we can see that a variety of pot colors are available on a given map. This could be dependent on the characters that you choose to deploy, allowing each of them to have their type of colored pots available to them on the battlefield. Or perhaps they're just simply set for each battlefield, and may present a distinct advantage for certain character types. Unless of course they're just some kind of other stat buff or assist. In this example though, the player is controlling Shez, whose pot color may be red as a physical sword-wielding unit. A yellow pot is also nearby, which could represent faith magic or light magic. And near Edelgard, who wields axes, we have a green pot. We don't, however, see any purple pots on this particular piece of footage, even though Hubert is also deployed. So it's unclear exactly if we're on the right track or not with this speculation. However, it is fun to consider the possibilities. Perhaps these could charge up combat art bars of the same type, or some kind of elemental or typing-based energy for each character and the class that they're in. Do keep in mind though, there's a lot that we still don't know about this game, like what these strange obelisks are that are around the map and also even indicated on minimaps. I also originally wondered if we'd end up seeing gauntlets this time around, and while being too busy ogling Raphael's new design, I neglected to mention last time that of course it's now been confirmed. I did mistakenly mention Caspar's affinity for brawling last time around during the Black Eagles trailer, as I forgot that his canon class was actually Warrior. I've pretty much always used Caspar as a gauntlet-wielding unit, as he's a natural at it, especially amongst the Black Eagle students. So it does make sense that they've opted to give him an axe here, and go with the Brigand class based on the class info reveals. However, the gauntlets as a part of his design is an interesting touch, and potential nod to brawling too. Last time I also mentioned Petra dual-wielding daggers, but you guys made me aware of the fact that one of her wielded weapons is actually a sword, giving her a really interesting combination of both sword and dagger attacks. We know from the class information that's been tweeted out that one of Petra's preferred classes, and likely the one that we're seeing her in right now, is the Thief class, so maybe they've opted for thieves to wield both swords and daggers together in this game. This could be some sort of reference to the fact that throughout the Fire Emblem series, thieves have wielded both swords and daggers at different times and in different games. You see, separate dagger weapons originally did not exist, so even though thieves were often shown wielding smaller knives or daggers, they began their time in the series equipped with the same swords that other classes used. However, thieves never wielded both swords and daggers together at the same time though. But as a fun Easter egg here, it kinda works. Another thing worth noting is with unique character specials. With attacks like Ignat's paint splatter arrows that seem to freeze enemies, much like his ice magic in Three Houses, and Bernadetta raining down arrows and so on, it's still unclear if these attacks will be class-restricted specials or musos. It wouldn't really make sense for Ignatz to be splattering the enemy with paint arrows if you made him into a swordmaster, and the same goes for Bernadetta here too. So will characters' preferred classes provide serious and unique benefits for them? Will there be other incentives to build characters differently if they only get these unique abilities in their main class lines? We'll have to wait and see. Could these abilities also be what those new bars are for that we were discussing earlier? Definitely. Let me know how you feel about all this in the comment section down below. Something else I saw some of you discussing that I found very interesting was that in Marianne and Ignat's new portraits, they both look significantly more unhappy versus their original portrait art from Three Houses. I'm definitely on board with the fact that there must be specific reasoning for this choice. Perhaps this game showcases a timeline where Ignatz is becoming more of a knight, as opposed to focusing more on his painting and passion for art, thus making him considerably more unfulfilled. For Marianne, it's still a bit more unclear, but I'm sure there must be a reason why this version of her character, during Three Hopes' time skip, is even more unhappy than she was in the original story. Like I've been alluding to occasionally, the official Fire Emblem Warriors Japanese Twitter account has also been sharing some preferred class information for certain characters, and I definitely want to talk in depth about these too. However, there's so many of them that I think it warrants its own video. So please get subscribed and stay tuned for that one, likely coming out later this week. Thanks to the official Nintendo of America website, we also finally have some details about the currently known 3 story routes in the game. For Dimitri's route, called Azure Gleam, you'll sort out Fargus while repelling the Empire. This one sounds pretty similar to the Blue Lion's route of Fire Emblem Three Houses, but it can't be this simple, right? What about Arvel and the other potential enemies? In Edelgard's Scarlet Blaze route, you'll conquer Fodlan to stop the Dark Forces. Could this be Edelgard finally getting her chance to deal with those who slither in the dark? It was mentioned briefly in the character endings of Crimson Flower and Fire Emblem Three Houses, but many fans were disappointed with Edelgard's storyline in particular, and its lack of length and playable chapters dealing with them. Even though it was resolved canonically, it felt unresolved to the player, because you didn't get the opportunity to actually participate in doing it. I suppose this one could also be referring to Rhea as the Dark Forces, but it definitely seems less likely to me for her to be described so bluntly in that way. In Claude's Golden Wildfire route, you'll support Lester to fend off Almyra. This one seems like a definite mislead. If you know anything about Claude, or should I say Khalid, he's originally from Almyra and is Almyran royalty. While we have seen that there is certainly going to be some drama with the Almyrans from the trailers, with this character potentially being a sibling, general, or another royal traveling all the way to challenge Claude, I can only imagine that the entire Golden Wildfire story can't possibly merely culminate in an Almyran final boss. Even if Claude were to fight his family, you'd think he'd have a bigger stake in the overall conflict against the other houses and other enemies that are actually within Fodlan. Moving on, we also have a slew of new screenshots showcasing conversations occurring at base camp. A big thanks to Serenes Forest for translating these. After the time skip, or at least with her time skip appearance, Dorothea expresses concern about facing other familiar faces, students, on the battlefield. Certainly very reminiscent of a lot of the Three Houses dialogue. Caspar talks about fighting. Annette and Mercy look for a way out. Sylvain is actually concerned about reputation for once. And of course, Raphael can only be concerned with food. And to leave you off on a high note, it also seems like it's very likely that we'll get a demo for Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes in the coming days, perhaps any day now. The Nintendo eShop page for the game shows a download demo button that currently doesn't work, but soon it will. Once we know more, I'll be sure to go live and experience the demo alongside you guys so we can all play along together. So make sure you don't miss out by getting subscribed. If you like this video, do me a favor and slash the thumbs up down below. And thanks to all of our amazing patrons for making content like this possible. If you haven't yet, be sure to check out my Golden Deer trailer breakdown for even more new information. And I'll see you all next time.
And in some ways, I like it even better than his original time skip hairstyle. It really feels as though Lawrence took his original pre-time skip haircut and went to an actual salon that was able to fix it. It's also kind of starting to remind me of James from Team Rocket, especially with his little rose moment here. We can see that this rose motif has also made its way into what's likely to be his Muso attack, as the enemies here are encircled by a red attack with rose petals.